We're live.
We're live.
Take it away.
And a happy National Fajita Day to you, my friend.
Really? I didn't even know it was that, man.
You didn't know August 18th was National Fajita Day?
No, although we like fajitas here in Miami, we're not fajita, we're not like the fajita. We're not the fajita kind. Yeah, we don't. There's no fajita equivalent in our society. But we do, because of the national fajita craze that started way back in the day. There's the fajita explosion, as some might say. We are quite aware and have consumed fajitas here in the eastern coast of the southeastern coast of the United States. But no.
And that's funny too, because I keep forgetting about the cultural differences. And you would think that that's part of what we celebrate here on this podcast. I keep forgetting about. I'm so used to Mexican food that I just think it's universal, because just about everywhere I've ever lived, I've lived in 14 states and several cities within each of those states, there's always been Mexican food there. So I just naturally assume that it's universal.
There's Mexican food here, don't get me wrong, but I would not have known that particular tidbit of it. Like, it's so ingrained in where you live that that it's National Fajita Day. I had no idea what National Fajita Day. In fact, I learned what Cinco de Mayo was just a few years back, maybe 6, 7, 8 years back. I had no idea that there was a Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah. Well, a little inside baseball here. Most of the white folks out here don't know what it is either. All they know is it's a time to go get Corona and lime. So they celebrate it. I mean, what can you say? Yeah. But when I saw that earlier today, it's National Fajita Day. I thought, great. So you know how we celebrated it tonight, don't you? We had pizza. We had pizza.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it was too late a notice to do up the fajita thing, but
there is good food here, and internationally speaking, and we do have Mexican food as well. But I don't know if it's just me, but my sort of angle, and it is because of the surroundings. There's a lot of Nicaraguan food and Peruvian food. There's other stuff, but there's a Central American sort of theme. And there's a restaurant called Central American whatever close by, and they have this platter with pork rinds that are deep fried and other things, and it's close to Mexican food, but it's not perfectly aligned. Like, they do things slightly different. And if you order that platter, which I have on various occasions, I mean, it comes with everything. It comes with everything, dude. Just samplers of all these meats and stuff. And it's freaking awesome, dude. It really is. It's good to have options,
Well, absolutely. And I mean, you can explore just food. You can explore the world just in food. And I dig the heck out of it. But it's, it's funny. We talk about, we talk about Mexican food as if it's one big thing. It's not. There are so many different regions. I mean, Chiapas is completely different from Chihuahua. So it's like saying American food. There really isn't an American food. I mean, there are certain things that are American, but most of them have been taken from so many other cultures that it's hard to really say American food.
That is true. That is true too, because it's regional, and then there's adaptations of whatever people's home generational countries were, and then it's sort of like homogenizes from region to region. It's so true, There is no necessarily.
Yeah, right? I don't know that I have ever had Nicaraguan or Guatemalan food. I don't know that I ever have. Maybe I did and just thought it was something else. But, there is a lot more to quote unquote Mexican food than just tacos, burritos, and things like that. Yeah. It's, I mean, good grief, flauta and carne asada, and oh boy, I'm gonna make myself hungry again. So
Yeah. We do. So there's the Nicaraguan food, and the Nicaraguan food. Obviously, there's the Cuban food, but
right,
for me growing up, so as I was going to school, and there was a time when we had an influx of Nicaraguan kids because their parents, they had fled Nicaragua, and they had been fleeing Nicaragua because of instability politically, and that, and they just started. And one is not, as a kid, sophisticated to know the
right,
geo strategies that are occurring, out there, at the time. So back then, you just saw an influx of kids that were from another part, right?
yeah,
Um, and it's a funny thing, right? Because they just integrated, and they brought with them and their parents these meals, among other things, but like these great meal that were so different from like what my parents would. But
right,
I would be invited over to a friend's house, and they say, "Hey, have some food," and it was different, and it was
yeah,
awesome because the Cuban food is not bland. People always say it's bland, and it's bland in comparison to, because it lacks the hot salsas and the this and that. There's none of that. That
okay,
doesn't exist.
yeah,
Um, it's just traditionally not there. It's traditionally more of Spanish food, and by Spanish we mean Spain, adaptations into the Caribbean,
right,
using Caribbean products, and fruits and vegetables. So it's sort of like a conglomeration of Caribbean with the Spanish, I guess you'd say Spaniard, mixture. So you'd have hot piping stews in
right,
the hot tropical weather. Your grandmother would put a hot piping, something that would happen in Spain to keep you warm, and they'd sit a bowl of steaming freaking stew, and you'd be eating the stew, and I got
sweating,
used, sweating like a stuck pig, but I got used to it, and I loved it. In fact, stews are my freaking favorite, but these people had like other stuff, other
yeah,
little things like the carne asada. They had these strips of carne asada, and they were strips. We never did strips like that. And then they did have the hot sauce, and I would, but it's a different type of. It's not. It's a weird thing. And
yeah,
I was trying it, and I was like, man, this liven up my I can't even say it right, my taste buds. And whereas if you were to give that, my dad, if you could not, in fact, the pepper was there as a little bit,
uh,
because even pepper was categorized. I'm not even exaggerating here. Like that was not the taste palette that occurred in the Cuban community, at least traditionally speaking. But I was excited with all these different little, and so the Nicaraguan food, just
yeah.
amazing. But it's not the only one.
And it was the same with me when I was younger. I mean, my grandmother and my mother were both born in Texas, eastern Texas, near the Louisiana border, and just about everything they had was fried. It was fried or it was baked. And so the recipes more or less stayed the same, but the ingredients were different. Where they would have fried catfish back there, it's fried trout up here, but she still prepared it the same way because that's how you fry fish. And fried chicken was done the same way. And, there was some adaptation of different ingredients because Eastern Texas isn't known for trout and salmon.
Right.
So things like that would be a little bit different. But then as a kid, we moved down to California. And I had friends that were Mexican, and I'd get the same thing. I would get invited over to their house for lunch or something like that. So I'm 6 years old, sitting at a friend's table for lunch, and he's showing me what a tortilla is for. I'm a little white kid from Oregon. I'd never seen a tortilla in my life, man.
Was it?
So it was a
Was
little
it
bit of an
raw?
adventure, but it was like, holy cow, this is good stuff. How come we don't eat like this? You know?
It was a different. It was a different,
Yeah.
because it's bread, it's corn, and flattened, right?
Well,
Without,
there's a little bit more to it than that. Well, it also depends on if it's corn tortilla or flour tortilla. but
You want me to tell you?
these were store bought. But
Yeah.
I had never seen a comal before, which is basically a a round cast iron disc with a handle on it. It's
Yeah.
kind of like imagine a skillet without the rim around it,
Yeah.
and you throw the tortillas on that, and they cook and they puff up, and then they put a couple of them on your plate. You take a little bit of this and a little bit of that, a little bit of the other, and it was like I was on safari, man. This was an exploration at the lunch table, and it was just cool to me, and it kind of opened my eyes a little bit. As you said, this is completely different. The flavors are different, the textures are different. This is good stuff. How come we don't eat like this? Yeah. And so that kind of cued my adventurousness in food.
It's
So
a great thing.
oh, yeah.
I'll tell you, I used to work so I did a lot of marketing work, a lot of marketing work. And what it entailed was, and with different brands, you could be working with Nestle Quick, you could be working with a wine company, you could be working with food products, you could be working with just name it, and the 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 different brands and stuff were there. So what you would do is you'd go and promote it. Sometimes I'd be the driver, pickup guy, and the display dude. Sometimes I do one job and not the other, and so all these gigs. So one gig that I did was super interesting concerning tortillas and this and that, because it was down in Homestead is where the gig was. And what it is that there's a strong Mexican community in Homestead.
Okay.
And so I would go and pick up these bags of flour, corn, whatever, I think it was called Maseca or something like that. And it was a green and yellow name and a white bag, right? Like just like a white sack bag, paper sort of, and it was flour. And so you got to do this and that, and they love this and stuff, and they gave me the product and stuff. They didn't explain what the heck it was. I did the whole job, the tour, like week after week, never knowing exactly, and I would promote it. I would stand there and the people would be walking by, and I said, these are on special now, and this and that, and if you buy two, you can have a chance to win this soccer ball, because they're into soccer. So I had this little soccer ring thing, and they'd have to kick it if it made it through the hole. So I was selling or promoting these products, and I had no clue what the heck it was about. And I knew it was flour, but I didn't know the intricacies and why they bought so much of it. They'd come into the supermarket, and you'd be in different places. They'd come in, and I'd say, would you like to, if you buy two of these? And they'd say, oh, we're already buying it. Yeah, we'd like to try for the soccer ball. And they'd be carrying sacks of this stuff. Yeah. And I never knew this was so damn popular. Every time I go to the Publix over here and I walk by the aisle, there's like one or two, there's a space for a few, because it depends on where you're at, right?
Sure.
And I always remember that when I walk past the aisle, I said, and I still don't know exactly what the heck you do. Do they add water to it and mix it?
I'm not a cook. I don't know. My wife could tell you. She makes homemade tortillas, but there are different types of flour. I do know that. The flour, the wheat flour tortillas. That's masa. I want to say masa harina, and then the corn flour is masa maize. I may be wrong. I don't remember. Anyway, I know masa is flour. I'm surprised she hasn't chimed in over in the live chat here on the mighty YouTubes to tell me. She's probably out listening from the living room. That's okay. When you have time, baby. Masa trigo, corn tortilla mix. Okay.
And
she knows all this stuff. I don't.
I would assume that you well, whatever. I was going to say you mix it with water. But the point was that they were doing all that. They were purchasing all that. And I thought it was going to be a tough sell. But the stuff was flying off the shelf, dude. I've never seen it. Was like on par with Coca-Cola. You know how people grab the 6-packs and this and that, and I had never had that kind of, I
Mhm.
I didn't know, and
Mhm.
I learned something new. But to this day, I don't know all that you could probably do
Uh-huh.
with that. Um, so yeah, but so we do have a strong Mexican community down in Homestead, and many other national. We have Peruvians,
Mhm.
Venezuelans, Colombians, a lot of Colombians as well. Um, boy, and if you stop in Miami, if you guys ever go to Miami, you're driving around, and let's say you get hungry or you want some sort of like little appetizer, what you would usually do in any other place. I guess the equivalent in your area would be like like a food truck, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But we have at the end, and this is like anywhere you go, at the end or corner, usually corner, but sometimes they're in the middle of any strip mall, just about.
Uh-huh.
There's a minimum little cafe, like a
Uh-huh.
little mini diner, and then it has a carved out window on the outside, and you could stand around on the outside, and it's full of people smoking cigars, drinking coffee, and then there's little empanadas and stuff, and you walk up to the counter, and the thing is, and it's a funny thing, you'd have to sort of be here to know, but I usually wait my turn until the person says, "And may I help you?" And then you like I've it's just that's how I was taught to, but you don't do that in these windows. The first person that gets there, according to the style of the tradition of this, is like, "Yeah, give me a coffee. Hey, give me a this, give me a that." It's like some sort of like newsroom, and people and the ladies going like this, and you wanted a coffee and this and that, and when I get there, and this is all my life, like I know what's up
Uh-huh.
and I've used it, but I don't feel good doing it. It's
Yeah.
telling a lady, give me a coffee. I always wait patiently, but you're supposed, like, they're okay with it.
Yeah.
Hey, I want 2 empanadas and a coffee. Oh, and give me a Coke over there. By the way, what's the special? And she's working on somebody else's stuff, and then she'll turn
Uh-huh.
around, she'll do this. Another guy's screaming. It's like chaos, dude. And you'll see that a lot here. Yeah.
Yeah. See, now I would be like you. I would be hanging back, going, "When's it my turn?"
Right. That's the
So,
decent thing to do, but they
uh-huh.
don't. But
Yeah.
what that does for you is
It makes you last.
yes, it makes you, and it's always done that for me. And I always wait because I was taught
Mhm.
to wait your turn.
Yeah.
But these people don't play that, and
Yeah.
they appreciate an obnoxious, "Hey, lady, put
Uh-huh.
some extra sugar in that coffee" or something like that. They actually appreciate it, and they don't expect. They're quite happy. You always leave, like, let's say if something costs $4.50
Uh-huh.
and she gets you the change, the typical thing is for the change to slap on to the counter,
Uh-huh.
and you walk away and say thank you, or push the coins to her and thank you.
Uh-huh.
And everybody does that little by little. It's not required, but
It's just
and
the
and they
etiquette.
get their tips. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's tourist information. We like to be informative as well as entertaining. But yeah,
It's weird. It's weird. It really is.
yeah. We have a bit of a mix out here too. It's a lot from Mexico, a lot from Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. Mainly a lot from Guatemala, but we also have a large Asian influence as well. I mean, there are Chinese, Japanese, and Korean communities all over the West Coast, heavy Filipino communities as well, and even some Samoan and Hawaiian communities out here. So you have this big hodgepodge from all over the West. I mean, you have the Asians coming east, and then folks coming up from Latin America, some from South America and Central America and what have you. So you got this big hodgepodge going on out here. But as I was saying a couple weeks back, I have yet to see like a Guatemalan restaurant or a Honduran restaurant or El Salvadorian restaurant. Lots of Mexican restaurants. And the secret to getting good Mexican food out here is to find a little hole in the wall joint that looks like it'll maybe hold 4 people. That's when you get the real deal, because it's family owned, family operated. and the family is cooking everything fresh, just like they would in their own kitchen.
Yeah.
That's when you get the good stuff. Oh man. And I'm telling you, you walk into a joint like that and the smells will just knock you off your feet. Go, oh yeah, this is the place, boy. So
I learned about that when I was there. So I
Yeah.
like the Mexican food that they did out there.
oh yeah. Oh yeah, because it's the authentic stuff. I mean, you know, you'll hear a lot of people out here talking about street tacos and what have you. I mean, there's no crunchy tacos like Taco Bell. It is a corn tortilla that has been cooked, but you have 2 tortillas to hold everything together, and it's filled with all your fillings and everything. Oh man, good stuff. See, now I just ate dinner about an hour ago, and I made myself hungry. But-
We have a national restaurant brand called South of the Border, and it's in this ritzy. I don't want to say ritzy, but it's like a trendy area, and it's a very nice area because they have like shops that look. I don't want to say Christmassy, but like it's got like this little sort of like European theme to it.
Mhm.
Every city probably has a section that's like meant for that, so it drives traffic and people, and
Sure.
and so they'll have these big brand sort of like South of the Border, this and that, and they're pretty darn good. They make great drinks, but it's still not
Yeah.
the same taste as a particular restaurant out there in California where, dude, the whole meal. I mean, they had the rice, the bunched up rice. You had your meat, and you had like your fried beans, refried, freaking awesome, and then a little cheese, and then you drink some tequila with it, like a margarita and stuff, and you'd leave that place feeling good, like satisfied, like
yeah.
There's some. I think they put something in it, man.
They do. It's called attention. They pay attention. They know how to cook. They pay attention to it, and it's good, excellent stuff. And I mean, some of the smallest little places you have ever seen, a counter and maybe 3, 4, 5 seats, if you're lucky. But that's where the good food is. You know, I mean, you can see back into the kitchen, the whole thing, and you've got somebody back there making the tortillas, and you've got somebody else over there on the flat top heating this up. And then you've got here lately, I've been skipping the pinto beans, the refried beans, and I'm going for black beans just for some reason. I love the way they cook the black beans.
Interesting.
There's a seasoning in there I cannot place, but I love it. And I got to stop this, man. I got to stop this.
I wonder how you'd react to not just one Cuban food plate, like dish or whatever, but just like, testing it out for a few days and stuff. I wonder how you'd react, because I mean, there's different things to try, but it's a weird thing because you do have a lot of stews,
right?
For one thing, but there's some things that are transposed, like rotisserie chicken is always going to be rotisserie chicken, except that they add like the tropical juices and this and that.
Sure.
But I wonder how there's so many like we've talked about this actually, so forget it. I know your answer to
What's that?
Garbanzo beans, chickpea soup. You're not into chickpeas.
I'm not much for garbanzo beans. I mean, if I went over to somebody's house and that was being offered
right
dinner, then yeah, I'll eat it. Yeah,
right. But it's not. You're like,
but it's not my favorite. It's not something I'm going to go out and get. And I'm the same way with kidney beans. I'm just not much for kidney beans. To me, they taste like crayons. I will eat them, but I'm not going to go out and search for them. You know? So there aren't many things that I can sit there and say I do not like. Liver is one of them. Eggplant is another. After that, there's not a whole heck of a lot I really don't like.
Brains.
I've never had them.
So you can't say.
I can't say yes or no.
Is it appetizing?
It's not something that I would search out, but if somebody offered me a little bit, I'd try it. What the heck?
Gizzards,
when my dad loved liver and onions. Okay. So my brother and I hated them. Whenever my mother cooked liver and onions for my father, Mom fried up a bunch of chicken gizzards for my brother and I.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Whenever she made a whole chicken, we would fight over the gizzards and the heart.
Let me tell you, it's a weird thing because I was used to certain standard Cuban food growing up at home, and there's standard stuff like
Sure.
white rice and
Mm.
black beans, which they call Christians and Moors.
Uh-huh.
Always Christians and Moors because the black beans were the Moors. It's a funny thing.
Okay.
And then you'd have, and that's like forever. That's like for decades, maybe a century or more, probably centuries.
Mm.
They call rice and beans when it's black beans with
Uh-huh.
white rice.
Christians
Christians
and Moors.
or Moors and Christians. Yeah, Moors and Christians. Um, they'd say. And so they'd serve us that. Mom would serve that, or grandma, or whoever in our little tight knit group. And then they'd have like a meat, like a skirt steak, and then some salad, which would be like tomatoes sliced with some oil and vinegar and some lime squeezed over it with salt, like a fresh salad, and then bread. It's just typical. But every now and then they'd bring over a delicacy or some sort of thing. And I remember one time they bought, for some darn reason, tongue.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, no, what is that? No, tongue? Are you kidding me? And to this day, I don't like the idea. I never liked the idea. I don't like the idea of brains. I don't like the idea of tongue. And mind you, if I had to, I would, like on
Sure.
an island or something. But for pleasure, I don't want to eat animal testicles, tongues, brains, lungs. Now I will do liver. Liver, for some reason, it's freaking awesome. But other than that, man,
I don't like just straight liver. Liverwurst I can eat. I just prefer not to. I know my wife loves liverwurst. So
I like it.
I mean, fine, great. She loves frying chicken livers. So give me the gizzard and the heart. You can have the chicken livers. I'm not a fan.
Heart's another one I can't.
Oh, that's good stuff, Maynard. Now, another thing, let me back up and regroup on, is kidney. It just, that I've never tasted it, but one of my old bosses when I was an upholsterer, his wife would make kidney pie, and he'd bring it into work every once in a while and heat some up in the microwave. And the smell of it just, no thanks. So you can keep the kidneys, you can keep the liver, but everything else, I figure people have been eating it for thousands of years. It's fine. I mean, it's demonstrably fine. But if you don't like the taste of something or the texture of something, I think that's perfectly legit. So,
I mean, it's all personal stuff. But when you're when you're exposed to a certain thing and then you're brought and they tell you what it is, it's like a tongue. Tongue to me is, or what's even worse, or no, not even worse, just on the same level, is stomach. Have you ever heard of people eating stomach?
Yeah, tripe.
Tripe. It's disgusting.
Or menudo.
It's disgusting, dude. I mean, that's my personal.
I've
never had it either, but I've seen it served, and I'm like, what is that? It looks like corrugated. There's it's corrugation, and I'm like, no, man.
Looks like the stuff you put in the walls to insulate. Yeah,
and that it doesn't look. Does it really look appetizing? Not to me.
Well, not a lot does look appetizing. So if you, it just depends on how you cook it and how you prepare it. I mean, like I said, I've never gone out looking for a steaming bowl of menudo, but if somebody served it to me, I'd give it a shot. And I think if you don't like the flavor or the texture of something, I think that's legit. But just because of the name of something, or, like tongue, I've never had it, but it's beef to me. I wouldn't be opposed to it. I'd try it. What the heck?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So it's just I know there's personal taste in this, that, and the other.
It's a personal taste thing. You're right.
But just we have these we have these things. I understand it. I won't say I don't get it, because I do get it, but we're very selective in what we'll eat. We're perfectly fine with any other part of the cow, but the tongue for some reason bugs us. Now, internal organs, I get it. I understand. But,
Yeah.
the tongue for some reason bothers us.
It's I don't know what it is. It's just and it looks not. I mean, oh my goodness.
Well, generally speaking, though, if it's made in a recipe, it doesn't look like a cow's tongue. You've got chunks of meat, in there.
Right.
And I mean, heck, you never know. Every can of Dinty Moore beef stew may be made out of the cow's tongue. We don't know.
Oh wait. Oh, hot dogs. We don't know.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right. Hot dog
for sure. It's strange though that you talk about that. We have such a influence from south of the border, and so many people have moved up into the area all along the West Coast, that it was interesting to see. You were talking about the large Mexican community down in Homestead. It was interesting to see the Mexican brands move up this way in the grocery stores, and to see like the produce department and the meat department start catering to people. Like there's a root crop grown south of the border called jicama that kind of sort of looks like a cross between a potato and a turnip, but it's kind of the consistency of a turnip, but kind of not. And it tastes absolutely nothing like either one of them. It's a very cool, refreshing vegetable. And you eat it raw. I guess you could cook it, but it's in salads and what have you. But most folks don't know what the heck to do with it. But the Hispanic folks buy the heck out of this stuff.
Is it like a water crescent?
It kind of, sort of. It does kind of remind you of the water chestnut.
Mm-hmm.
But it's real good. I mean, I dig it. I'll eat it. But you'll see things in the meat department like pig ears. Mm-hmm. Pig's feet, I expected, because I mean, there's a lot of people whose ancestors came from the South here. They've been selling pig's feet in the grocery stores for years.
Like pickled pig's feet?
But pig ears, how do you even cook a pig's ear?
In a package, and it says, now with hair still attached.
Yeah, I don't know, but it's funny.
For your pleasure.
we look at that and we go, ooh, who would eat that? But we have no problem at all going over and grabbing a ham, which came off the other end of the pig. So,
oh yeah, no, it's completely what we've been accustomed to. I know people that are so picky with food that they just won't. And I'm not talking about that. I do have my limits, but I will try, I don't know, Indian food, for instance. Totally down with trying that. Mm-hmm. I went for some Jamaican food once, but man, that's not even on the level of Mexican hot.
Be careful with Indian food.
Oh yeah. Well, I've not gotten that crazy, but like the Jamaican food, like there's some like spice that they have. I don't know I think it's the ginger mixed with whatever, but there's some hot stuff that will knock your stuff in the dirt, dude. Yep. I tried it once and I like the meat of it, but I couldn't deal with the excessive slap in the frickin' face of the heat or whatever you want to call it.
Be careful of Jamaican jerk chicken and be careful with Indian food, because they throw some peppers over there. I mean, one woman has the world record for eating the most of these peppers. I can't remember what kind of pepper it is. She ate 12 of them before she had to take a drink of water, and that's the world record. Only 12. So, and nobody's touched it. It stood for quite a while. But I mean, they got some stuff over there that will take paint off a car. So yeah, be careful with Indian food.
Have you ever seen that video on YouTube where it's two news anchors and they're doing let's try the one chip hottest chip on earth, and it comes in one plastic little wrapper, and they open it and they pull out the chip. And so you have this guy, the anchor, and then you have the lady, and they're gonna do the challenge, and he bites into it and she bites into it, and she fans her mouth a little bit, and the guy starts sweating, his eyes watering, and he says, "Nothing's. Is this not affecting you? Is this not?" And she says, "Well, traditionally we are from Nigeria and we are used to, or whatever place in the," and she could totally. She was okay, and he was freaking gagging, and you couldn't drink the whole thing, and he did the whole episode. Did you see that one?
No, I didn't see it. That would be interesting, though.
Dude, the guy, and at one point she laughs, like she sniggers, she goes, and he turned and his eyes squint and looks at her, and you could tell he was thinking evil because he's suffering. And at the end, he grabbed some milk and he was like, oh, drinking the milk. It's the hottest chip on earth. It's called whatever, the death something
chip challenge. Yeah,
you've seen it then, yeah.
I've seen the challenge. It went around last year.
Yeah, I'm talking
early year. Yeah,
I'm still in 2019, but it was funny. It was funny because some people can deal with that. I cannot.
It was one of those trends that hit YouTube and is still rolling to this day. You still have people doing the one chip challenge today for the first time. So, it's I don't know. I like a little bit of spice, but I don't like it so hot you can't taste anything but the spice. And I know a lot of people are into that kind of thing. Oh, try this hot sauce. This will knock your face in the mud. I'm not into that, man. I want to taste the food. If I want to do something like that, we'll sit down with a bag of tortilla chips and a few drops on the tortilla chip and we'll go for it. But I want to be able to taste my dinner.
Well, yeah, I'm with you on that.
So, now having said that, I do like jalapeno poppers and things like that. That's good stuff. But
I like those
other flavors mixed in with it too. So, and I do like chipotle sauce as well.
Yeah, I like it too, but not as much as yeah, I like it too, but not as much as like, let's say, your standard salsa. I like that. I like the standard salsa, even the green salsa and stuff. I know Chipotle is a whole different story, but
Chipotle is just a mesquite smoked jalapeno, is all it is. But they can them in oil, and they're real good stuff. But anyway, if it's going to make me sweat, we'll do that someday when I'm feeling macho. Right now, I'm trying to enjoy dinner. So
I'm with you on that. So just to see if it's possible to change subjects, so we did the food circuit, but this episode we call it Dos Pistoleros. I don't know if you saw when I sent you the
yes, I did, and I had to look up what that meant. My Spanish is not that good.
Two gunfighters. Two gun, and then I did the art, and I don't know why. I always return to that theme because I love the Old West. I just love. I don't know what it is, and what better way to commemorate a episode that we don't know what we're going to talk about than to make a poster like from those old movies from the 1960s and 70s. And so we're standing there, guns a-blazing, coming into a hacienda, ready to do battle or doing battle. And I don't know who we're gunning down. I don't know what's going on in that poster, but it just popped into my mind, and I was thinking Old West themes and this and that. And we are talking salsas and this and that. So I guess, and America and the different, I wonder if there's something we could draw from that.
It's a Latin theme. I don't know. Maybe you were subconsciously thinking of National Fajita Day. But that's why I adopted the name that my screen name here within this. Podcast.
Almost.
Yeah, means the mustache.
Mm-hmm. So Old West, man. I really didn't come with anything planned and stuff other than I like the Old West.
I like the Old West. Now, now, growing up, and we did this on one of our first podcasts.
but nobody will remember, so it's like fresh.
Was it like Flipper in Oregon and Bonanza in Florida or something like that? What we talked about. What was it about the Old West when you were growing up as a kid that kind of gave you this
Do you
Jones?
remember my answer?
No, I don't. I don't know that I ever asked you. I don't know that I ever asked you that.
You don't remember my answer to that?
Well, I know you dug the Western TV shows.
Yeah.
And the movies.
Mm-hmm.
But what about it was...
There was nothing else. There was nothing else in the afternoons and on Saturday. So you had to, like, once cartoons were done, what else did you have? You could watch that or bowling, live bowling. Remember? And remember, when I saw bowling for the first time on TV as a sport, do you remember that? It was like, okay, now he's going to, and they were so calm about it. And this was so anti the action of sports that I was transfixed. All right, let's see. This is Kevin Dortmund, and we're going to see if he can do this. Last year, and they talk about, and then with this sort of like calm voice, and then he bowls, and boom, a strike. That's what, and then people clap like calmly. This is back in the day, and I'm watching this, and I'm like, okay, we'll watch this because what else do you have to watch? So you'd spend an hour or two watching frickin' bowling and the guy talking about people that you've never heard from.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it, man. I was gone. I was out the door. I had to go somewhere.
Wait, Mark, come right back. The bowling is not done. Come right back from the door. Step away from the door, Mark.
No, gotta go. Gotta go. I got things to see and people to do. Gotta go. You know, it was when bowling, golf, or billiards came on, I was out the door. Because it's just like you're talking about, the guy with the real quiet voice.
Yeah.
And Jimmy is stepping up to the third green. He had 2 birdies, an eagle, and a duck last week. You know, it's everything that sports isn't. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area where you had the Raiders, the 49ers, you had the baseball, the Oakland A's and the San Francisco Giants and the whole thing going on. And then you had wrestling and roller derby and basketball and all this stuff going on. And nobody, not a soul, was quiet at any of those sports. But you're watching bowling, and one of the biggest professional bowlers in the game years back, Marshall Holman, lives here in Medford. This is where he's from. He still lives here today. Cool. And he was one of the biggest professional bowlers out there for a while. To me, it's like watching paint dry. I can't do it. I can't hang. Now, I'll go bowling if you want to go bowling. It can be fun.
It can.
But watching other people do that, I just never understood the attraction. And the golf too, I never understood the attraction of watching a guy hit the ball with a crooked stick, then walk after it and then hit it again. You know, I don't get it. Go and play golf, I get it. It's a challenge. It's a skill. You're competing against yourself as well as your buddies that are with you.
Yeah.
It could be fun. I've never played, but I could see how it could be fun.
Have you played mini golf?
Oh, mini golf, sure. Everybody has played mini golf, but I've never walked out onto a golf course and swung a golf club from the heels to drive. Nope, never done it.
And try to and so, you know, I mean, that's an exaggerated example of just what mini golf is, but like in the real world. But you could have great fun just mini golfing.
Used to do that every once in a while. And remember, this is a small town. There wasn't a lot to do here. You could go play miniature golf. You could go roller skating. You could go cruise around town if you were old enough to have a driver's license or what have you. But everything else, you more or less made your own, or go to the movies. Everything else, you kind of more or less made your own fun.
How about the malls?
We didn't have a mall here until, after I left. I joined the Army and moved out. We didn't have a mall here. We had one shopping center, which was kind of, I guess, an open air mall, but basically one long building with storefronts around the outside, and they took deliveries in the middle there. But there were no malls.
See, I had more of a, it appears. Well, no, because you also grew up in San Francisco.
Yeah, but we moved down there. I was 5 years old, and we moved back. I was 16.
Oh, well, I mean,
the mall thing hadn't really caught on. So that was more of an 80s type of thing.
Yeah.
Malls were where you had to go when your mother drug you downtown to go clothes shopping. It's nowhere you wanted to be, unless they had a good toy store. If they had a good toy store where you go in, model kits, radio control airplanes, model rockets, whatever, then great. But other than that, I really didn't have any use for malls. I wanted to stay as far away from them as I could because that generally meant clothes shopping, which was a fate worse than death when you're 14 trying to be cool. When you're 14 trying to be cool and your mom wants to take you clothes shopping. It's like,
no, but none of it makes sense. Like, to me, actually, even to this day, like the whole idea of clothes, to me, it's just coverage of your private parts, and then just keep rocking, man. Keep walking the walk. Now that's not very sophisticated, and you do need to. I do understand the idea of looking presentable in society and this and that, but even back then to even now is like, what the heck's this whole fascination about the sock aisle? Why do we have to go to the shoes? And you had to tag along, like you said. You'd be sitting there and they'd be working at the shoes, and looking at the shoes, and then you'd say, "Oh, can I go over here?" And my grandma, when she'd take me, she'd say, "Okay, but come back. I have to keep an eye." And you go, and I'd rush to. And I was a good kid in respect to me obeying, to know that the source is going back to grandma so you don't get lost and abducted. But I'd go to the toy area and it'd be like a relief, man, but the shoes, oh, I'm gonna buy you a nice shirt. You need a nice button-up shirt.
Yep.
Did you ever as a kid think, yeah, you know what I need? I need a nice button-up shirt. Did you ever think that?
Not one time. And neither did I give a damn if my belt matched my shoes. I was like, oh, those are real good looking shoes. Yes, we're going to get you those. And now we need to go match a belt to it. Mom,
I was like, what?
What's to match? It's black. No, these are shiny, and this is black suede.
You were like a little
suede belt with black shoes.
You were her little doll, and she was.
Yeah, I didn't care. I didn't care.
You were her little doll, and she was working. Oh, we're gonna put this little hat on. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do that. And you're just a kid wanting to do your thing.
We didn't do the hats or anything like that. I mean, I bought a beanie cap, a knit stocking cap, and I wore that for a couple of years. But then I think I left it over to a friend's house, and I didn't really care if I got it back. It just was one of those things I didn't really give a ding dong about. I liked my boots when I was finally able to say, no, I want boots. I got engineered boots with the little ring on the sides with the little straps that went down underneath and around the back. I got my engineered boots and blue jeans, and I was happy. And I'm still a blue jeans and t-shirt kind of guy. I really am. That's about all you will ever catch me in. And I've got blue jeans that's got holes in them the size of this county. That I have to reach down. They got such big holes in the knees that I have to reach down and grab hold of the bottom of the pant leg and pull it up if I'm going to kneel down onto my knees, because if I don't, they'll rip, But they're fine for crawling around under the house or doing what I got to do out in the yard where I'm getting filthy and nasty. And then I'll come in, clean up, put on some decent clothes to go downtown. Decent clothes meaning a pair of clean blue jeans that don't have holes in them. So, I've got like 4 pairs of pants and a truckload of t-shirts, and that's about it.
That's funny, dude. I had a pair of, and this happened more than once, but the same deal. But the hole, and I kept wearing it, was at the crotch, like right there in the middle from it just, but it reached up through the back, not quite going up the crack area. So it was not visible. So I wore it. I said, nobody's going to see that. And I get a little extra fresh air. So I'm just going to walk it, man. And I was walking it. And then I kept using it for I don't know how long. And these jeans were awesome. I liked them because they were broken in. Really broken in. And one day I did like the whole tour of like someplace. And when I realized that the crack had totally split open, and it was like, underwear sticking out. And then at that point, I did have enough decency and say, okay, these jeans are officially done, because nobody wants that. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
they need to be retired. Yeah. Well, another benefit is it pays to advertise. But if you're not in that business, then don't do it. But yeah, there's certain modesty that you do have to keep. I'm not out to scare the kids or anything like that. But if I'm in my backyard crawling around back there under the house, running conduit or something like that,
In the
what I,
nude.
what I'm wearing is nobody's business. So
In a European Speedo running conduit.
yeah, well, that ain't gonna be me. But
No, but now you want a good video for YouTube, that will get you that. You just go for the European Speedo and run conduit. In fact, whatever you do, woodworking wise, making wise, just Speedo and flip flops. Obviously, you don't want to hurt the bottom of your feet. But other than that, you got to go as bare as the day.
now I've got that part covered. If you watch some of my older videos where I'm working out in the shop, I am wearing flip flops. I wear flip flops a lot.
Yeah.
But I picked that up when we were stationed over in Hawaii, because that was basically the uniform. Big floppy t-shirt, one size too big for me, a pair of shorts, and flip flops. We were back here on the mainland for probably 6-7 years before the stripes on my feet finally faded, because I had suntan, everywhere except where a t-shirt and shorts would be. So my feet were tanned except for the white stripes.
That's funny, dude.
So yeah, man, I'm built for comfort. You were talking about, we have to be sophisticated. I have very little sophistication. I figure so long as the parts that the world is not supposed to see are covered up, I'm good.
But don't sit here and lie though. Whenever you've put on a suit, be honest, because it happens to me. It does sort of set you in a certain mood, like, hey, yeah, I'm in a suit. This is my elegant moment here. I'm in a suit. That's right. Yeah, so putting on a suit does give you a certain thing. I don't know if it does for you, or do you just feel like, yeah, I'm Mark wearing this damn thing. I get it, because I'm like dying to take it off, but like there is a little bit of like prestige when you don something, a little bit more, I guess, like fancy.
I don't own a suit.
Whoa.
I don't own a suit. The only suit I own is my old Army Class A uniform, and I don't fit it no more. It has suffered from closet shrinkage. But I do have my kilt, tuxedo shirt, Prince Charlie jacket, the whole thing. That's a Scottish tuxedo, and that's right at about $1,500 to $2,000 worth of stuff by the time you get the whole thing assembled. But even that doesn't fit anymore. It's also got closet shrinkage. So I haven't been able to wear that in a couple of years. Last time I wore that was to my daughter's wedding. So
I think it's time.
But yeah, you're right. When you get all dressed up and nattied up, you do kind of feel, man, yeah, I do kind of feel pretty good.
I'm fancy now,
I'm feeling pretty good about this. This is all right.
But on the balance of that, honestly, there is nothing as comfortable, especially in Florida. I don't know about other places, but for me, to be with your flip flops and some short shorts, and a thin sort of shirt, and man, it's like freedom.
Yep. That's me. If it's long and floppy, and just about one size too big. This is a little bit tight. This shirt that I'm wearing right now, that'd be a little bit tight to be. I mean, it's comfortable. It's great. It's fine. But this is not a comfortable shirt. It needs to be one size larger, and then a pair of shorts and my flip-flops, and that's it. I'm ready to take on the day. And over in Hawaii anyway, if I couldn't go into a place dressed like that, I didn't need to be there. Because you see guys having business lunches dressed like that.
Oh, that's great.
Except Friday, when everybody wore an Aloha shirt. The flowered Hawaiian shirts like Mag PI. They didn't wear red ones. That was one of the weird little goofy ones there. Unless it was the uniform for a hotel, you never saw a Hawaiian wearing a red Hawaiian shirt.
Because it was like a maitre d' type thing?
It was. It just wasn't the color that they wanted. They wanted white blue, browns, and tans, maybe a little bit of green, not much. But red was just, that's something you sell to the tourists. We don't wear that here.
Interesting.
Now, there are exceptions, but they're very, very few. Now, like I said, if it's a uniform that you wore because you worked at a hotel or something like that, that was different. But everybody put on a Hawaiian shirt on Friday. They called it Aloha Friday.
Something very similar to the Hawaiian shirt, but it's a completely unique to Cuba, originating from attire, is called a guayavera.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've ever heard of the guayavera before.
It doesn't sound familiar.
So it's worldwide popular. And I think that you might recognize it after I describe it, maybe not. But so what it is it's a button-up shirt, very thin, like very thin material, thread count or whatever, so that you feel like, free.
Yeah.
And it's got 4 to 6 pockets, 2 on the chest where you normally would have 1 pocket, 2 below it. Usually it's 4, but there's some that have 6, and it's called the guayavera. And it's been trendy for a long time. I don't know about currently, but it originated, and I've owned many guayaveras. And what it is that there was this worker of the land, and he asked his wife if she could sew him some extra pockets so that he could put, the guavas and or tools, so that he'd have places to put like something, a utility sort of. And she did so, and that idea actually caught on, and they started making it fancy and stuff. And it's a very if you look for it online, you'll see what it is, guayavera. But it's very, and it caught on, and you see it everywhere. You see it all throughout the Americas. You see it in movies. You see it, and it became a more of a casual night, elegant night, sort of shirt, button-up shirt with dress pants. And so it's evolved into that. So there's whole stores here dedicated to selling guayaveras.
Wow. Yeah, I know over there were stores that sold nothing but the flowered shirts and muumuus, stuff like that. Yeah. I think I have seen 1 or 2. And you mentioned you've seen them in movies and what have you. I think I've seen them in movies too, but I don't think I've ever seen anybody wear one out here. So it didn't catch on here. Maybe it did in his past, but I've not seen them out here.
Well, I don't know. Maybe not in certain areas, but I know that Hollywood, and really just all throughout the world, Europe, Central South America, it spread. So it's just one of those things. But it's casual, and yet here at least they use it as I'm dressed casual but elegant and this and that, and it works because people perceive it as such. It's
kind of like the polo shirt or the golf shirt here with the little alligator sewn above the pocket.
You're dressed. You're dressed.
You're not slovenly. You're not a slob, but you're not in a suit either. Business casual, I guess you'd say. But I don't even do that. I mean, when I was selling real estate, I would wear things like that, the pullovers and the button-up shirts and slacks and the polished up shoes and what have you. But now that I'm retired, I'm half the time I'm working out in the yard, so I got to be comfortable and I got to be utilitarian. So it's either my holy old Levi's that I won't throw away or give to the thrift shop that I'll eventually wear down to the point to where I have to cut the legs off and make shorts. Then I'll go down and I'll buy another pair of Levi's, and one of the pair of Levi's I've got now will be relegated to work pants. I've still got parts of my old Army uniforms, and I got out of the Army in 1991. So
did you ever wear
jackets I still wear?
What's that? I'm sorry, I didn't get the.
There are shirts and uniform shirts and jackets I still wear.
No way.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. It works.
Did you ever? Because I had a pair, ridiculous, but I had a pair. I don't even know why I did, but overalls.
Bib overalls, no. I never had I did have coveralls that had the sleeves and the zipper and all that other stuff. In fact, we've got a
Like
few
a
sets in
jumpsuit.
storage. Yeah. In fact, I still have some flight suits in storage, I think, unless we gave them away to somebody who can wear them. They were made of Nomex flame retardant material that pilots and crew chiefs wore when we were flying in the Army.
Nice.
And they issued them to you, and they were part of the uniform. And I think we still have some. I don't know if we still have them or not. I'll have to dig around, see if we got them.
Jim,
Go ahead.
were you going to do the same thing?
Yep.
So Jim asked a question, and we typically don't take questions, Jim, but Jim asked a question, and he says, do you know the story of how the kilt got named? And then he puts a question mark, like emphasizing that he wants a reply to this.
Yes, I do. I do know how the kilt got named. It was named in honor of all the people killed for making skirt jokes. any more questions, Jim?
Nobody would ever have bat an eye back in the day, because people were wearing throughout the Middle East and frickin' Egypt. Everybody was donning skirts. I don't think that at a certain point there was no division between one leg and the other. I think you said one time.
Well, for many, many, many years, just about every culture has had their version of a kilt or a skirt or a wrap or something like that. Some still do, but the Scottish are credited for inventing trousers of all things, which we now know today. We call them pants. Over in the UK, they still call them trousers, but I know in like Samoa, they call them a lava. They don't have all the pleats in them, but they still are worn today. I mean, you'll see in Hawaii, you see a Samoan church, and you see guys walking in there with them wrapped around, where they're wearing a nice dress shirt with a tie, and then a bright green lava wrapped around them. You see it all over the place in various cultures.
But it's a comfortable thing, right?
The Greeks kind of took it to the extreme. Theirs are extremely short. I mean, we're talking like almost can tell your religion short.
Betty Boop style. Boo, 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 boo.
Betty Boop would even say, yeah, no, I don't think. I think that's a little bit too short for me. I mean, you can almost see cheese, but what can you say?
I mean, why? I mean, I'm sure there were two Greek guys sitting around, and one said, you know what? What is it? I think that our men's skirts are way too long. It's not revealing the upper thighs. What do you say, Pompolopoulos? Okay, let's reduce those. And then they said, maybe
it was just a shortage of fabric that year. I don't know, but they kind of took it to the extreme. But yeah, for many, many years, I mean, when you think of the Romans with the togas, now they didn't wear togas every day. I do know that. That was, in fact, I want to say it was Augustus Caesar that basically demanded that the Senate wear togas, that if you were going to be addressing the forum, you had to be in a toga or they wouldn't hear you. So the senators wore the togas, but I mean, they were unwieldy. They were huge. They were gigantic half circles of fabric that you had to wrap around you in certain different ways. And you had to hold on to it, one hand over your shoulder, or it'd fall off. But they didn't wear that on a daily basis. They wore, little shorts or some sort of a loincloth covering or they just went naked. I mean, we have become You know, and the climate down there, they didn't really need to cover themselves up to stay warm. I mean, we have the climate up here where we have to. You know,
It gets
there's
cold at night though,
oh yeah,
even in because it's got the Mediterranean vibe. So you've got your same West Coast sort of cold,
but
like the Mediterranean at night, but warm during the day.
well, we're further up north, so we have hot summers, but we have cold winters too. So, and it's just like there might be 3 months out of the year where you could get away with dressing like that, but no, not none of me, you know. But you got to admit now, the kilt is a conversation starter. Could you stand next to a guy wearing a kilt and not say something?
Yeah, I'm number one. I'm trying to avoid the awkward situation. I mean, it depends. If we're in a kilt area where there's kilts everywhere, I'm the one that's out of place here, you know. But if we're in an area and there's only one kilt person, I'll say, well, you know, I'm not gonna. You don't want to offend the person, this and that. It's a weird thing. It's weird.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. I mean, and just, you know, I would wear it to work on occasion at the casino. You know, I'm wearing the kilt, especially St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick's Day, I had to wear the kilt. And women love it. They absolutely love it. You are the topic of discussion, man.
Yeah.
And that is all there is to it. And yes, I've heard all the questions and I have a whole bunch of answers. But you know, I wore it one year on St. Patrick's Day, had my tool belt and the whole thing, and I'm wearing my casino, you know, my casino uniform from the waist up, but the kilt instead of trousers. And we had a ball that night. I mean, people were hooting and hollering. Of course, half of them were half lit because the green beer and the whole thing for St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
But, you know, 4 women gave me their phone number. It was hilarious, man. It's just people who wouldn't look at you sideways any other time. If you're wearing a kilt, they're like, "Oh, holy cow, that's cool! Wow, that looks good." What are you wearing underneath?
Well, you gotta have you have to have some confidence to wear a kilt, and that does show. Because I mean, you know, the whole connotation with skirts and this and that, which is not true. But you know, the whole thing, we're not used to that. So if you have the confidence to do something like that, I mean, you know, I'm sure that they're like, well.
It's only a skirt if you're wearing pumps and panties with it. Okay. So, you know, but everybody seems to be, you know, I've never had anybody have a problem with it, but Hispanic males don't like it. They have a problem. They think it's weird. They think it's weird, man. And it's just like, how could you wear something like that? I'm like, dude, it's a part of my culture, you know, my ancestors. Yeah, but man, that's a skirt. No, it's a kilt. It's a completely different thing. Women wear skirts, men wear kilts.
Most people don't wear skirts. Most guys don't wear skirts or kilts, let's say. So it's still an out of place thing because it's not cultural, like what you call. It's not like in use culture.
Yeah,
it's not in use, so people will draw.
It is unusual enough that it does get attention. It you know, because like I said, could you stand next to a guy in a kilt and not say something? You know,
I could.
It is a conversation starter.
Well, yeah. Know? But you know, I would not. I would try not to. Like, I would try personally. I would try to not refer to the whole kilt situation. I just go about my normal. Because I mean, you know, the guy. You know, I mean, what can you say?
It's just normal to us. Linda's been bagpiping now for 15 years and stuff like that. So I had the kilt before she ever picked up the pipes, but it's basically a Scottish tux, but it's not necessarily for formal occasions. Mm-hmm. It's not something you wear every day, but it's something that you wear for certain celebrations.
Yeah. It's like you're doing it up and showing your heritage and stuff. I totally get it. I mean,
And you go to the Highland Gathering and Games, that's just another excuse to wear it. I mean, Linda used to tease all the time about, we're going to go to the Highland Games. Great. I'll bring the leaf blower. It's easier on my back than dropping stuff all weekend long. So, that kind of thing. But
Well, just remember, I think it was 3 or 4% Irish, and what was it? And 3 or 4% English. So somewhere
English,
back
Scottish,
there, English Scottish. So somewhere back there, someone, I don't know if they all wore kilts. I don't know what they were doing.
not all of them.
But somewhere back there was
Uh-huh.
some kilt wearing guys. So I mean, but then again, if you think about it, if you think about it, look at weird or out of place, because I'm looking at it from like the American point
Uh-huh.
of view, and it's kind of like it's not done. Here typically you don't see that. We're more like t-shirts and like
Uh-huh.
flip flops. That's like the standard.
So
That's
am I.
But that is underdressing and a little bit sloppy
Uh-huh.
in comparison to people that back in the day were more formal. And in fact, when you look at pictures, we've said this before, you have a sense of like, wow, man, this person, look how they were dressed. This is freaking on. Like, whereas imagine what are the people going to be doing 30, 40 years from now, looking at photos of people living in the 2000s. They're like, Mickey Mouse shirt.
Well,
with freaking, it's going to
look at how we react to people when we dig out old photos of the 70s or 80s. Look at how we react to our own old photos. Oh my God, I don't believe I wore that. Holy cow, look at that hair. Oh no. That kind of thing. We do that now.
But we don't, but does it, there's a timeline like I would say from the 50s back where there's some sort of a decency and sophisticated decency, respectable, like, wow, that's really just from that point going back in time, everybody looked like they really dressed better. And I'm sure they were totally in the most screwed up situations. But like from the 60s on, you see this guy wearing this like psychedelic print thing with, and the glasses and stuff. Yeah. And then the 70s, man. And then, it just goes on. Then the hair and it looks ridiculous. Like it's like clown bar from the 60s on. But before it was very
because
sophisticated.
But you got to remember that before that, and I mean, I've shown you, I've got a photo of my great grandmother and grandfather.
Yeah, those are awesome photos.
And he died in like, I want to say 1906, 1907, something like that. So it was taken before then. And you got to remember that having your portrait taken, having a photograph taken was a big deal.
Yeah.
It was hugely expensive. And most folks didn't do it because it was so expensive. So if you were going to go in and sit down and have your photo taken, you wanted to be dressed up in your absolute best clothes. So that's why they have that air of sophistication, because it was a special thing to have your picture taken. Now we don't even think about it. No. We're out there for comfort.
Yeah, and in fact, many pictures should never have been taken. But I mean, but yeah, there is that sort of, and they never smiled for the most part.
Smiling for photos is and in pictures is something that's pretty new.
I think that it's better the non-smiling. I like the non-smiling because you see the person, and then instead of doing like the crazy, everybody cheese.
The exposure times were so long for the old film that you had to get in a position that you could hold for a minute.
That's true.
Or two. And try to hold a smile for a minute or two, So yeah, it's exact. It gets pretty ding dong tiring after a while. So I don't know, but yeah, smiling for photographs is something that's relatively new. I want to say it came in the 20s or 30s. But so yeah, that's 100 years. So God, that's difficult for me to think about, man, that the 1920s, starting this year, the 1920s was 100 years ago.
I mean, back in the 80s, I thought that the 50s was an eternity ago. But if you think about it in terms of how much we've lived now, from the 80s to the 50s was a different world. I mean, look at Back to the Future. They actually did the whole series of from the 80s, let's say 70s, 60s, 30 years back, roughly. So their Back to the Future thing was a 30-year going back. But from our position now in 2020, it's super far away in the past, and the 20 is extremely far away in the past. It's a crazy thing.
Okay. 1980 was 40 years ago.
1980 was 40 years ago.
Right. The 1980 to 1950 was only 30 years. So you're further away from 1980 than you were back then when you thought the 1950s was forever ago.
Well, because I was younger too, but that's an amazing thing for you to say, because back then I would listen to the oldies station, and in fact they were oldies because they were 30 years old.
Yeah.
So
we're still listening to 40 and 50-year-old music now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I like it better, but that's my personal. I like it better.
Yeah.
I like it better.
Well, and we're watching movies from that era too. I mean, TV shows from the 50s and 60s are still big in certain markets. I mean, it's weird. It's funny to me because I grew up watching sitcoms like Brady Bunch, Partridge Family, Three's Company, things like that. And my mom and dad grew up watching, My Little Margie, Our Miss Brooks, Dobie Gillis, things like that. When I was 14, 15, 16 years old, watching reruns of their TV shows, Dobie Gillis and Bachelor Father and all them, more time has passed from now to back when I was watching those sitcoms than had passed since they were watching those sitcoms.
It's an amazing thing.
Yeah, it is when you go back through the timelines. I mean,
we
are closer to the year 2040 than we are to the year 2000 right now.
It's just unspeakable.
Yeah.
To me, 2000, we've said it before, I've said it before, but to me, 2000 was the dividing line. 2001 was the dividing line between what used to be, what was, and what we have become. To me, everything prior to the year 2000 was the world that I hate to say it like this, but I'll say it as a bold, all sort of out there statement. That was the world I knew and was fond. It's a funny thing. I was fond of memory wise and this and that. From that marker back was the world of a certain type of innocence for me.
Yeah.
On many levels. And then from the 2000 9/11 situation and everything this way, it's as if our reality took a different. It's as if we took a course in a different parallel reality. I know that that's not I don't know that that's not the case, but it's almost as if we took a turn down a road that
many would say we have. Yeah, many would say we have. But think of it, it's, you want to feel old. There are people who will be old enough to vote in this election this year, this November, who were not alive when 9/11 happened. They weren't born yet.
So to them, it's a historical event of no.
It was years ago.
Yeah.
There's no relevance for them because they don't know anything before that. But, hey, that's what happens. We get older. We remember things. I mean, it's just weirdness. It's just weirdness.
Do you remember the Maine?
No. I remember reading about the Maine because that was in 1800s.
but it's a funny thing, that saying, remember the Maine. Before I even understood what it meant, I knew that saying. My father would say it. I mean, people would say it, and I pay attention. Remember the Maine. That weird little, because we're talking about an event from the, I guess it would be 1890 something or whatever, early, when, in Havana Harbor, the Maine was struck and sunk. Some people think that it was done on purpose, or it was an event created so that the U.S. could get. I mean, there are a lot of conspiracies with varying degrees of
would we do that?
We've done certain things like that before.
I know that was sarcasm.
But I think, did you find what year?
Yeah, 1898. You were right.
1898. Yeah. So that's something from beyond our grasp, and yet it's still in our psyche somehow. I mean,
it's also a regional thing too. Because out here the phrase "remember the Alamo" is bigger. I didn't hear "remember the Maine" until I was in my teens, and I had to look it up. I didn't know what they were talking about. But out here, remember the Alamo, we heard that all the time.
I remember the Alamo.
Do you now?
Yeah.
In fact, it was so ingrained in our psyche out here that years ago, the milk marketing boards, from whatever state or what have you, you remember that campaign they had, "Got Milk," and everybody had the milk mustache. Before that, it was "Remember the Alamo."
Oh, wow.
Bumper stickers and t-shirts with a cow on it. "Remember the Alamo." And it's like, come on, really?
Did you know because of that event of the Maine, it triggered the Spanish-American War?
Yes, it did, and that's why I said that.
So a lot of things occurred at that instance, and that from that, Cuba gained independence from. It was the last holding of Spain.
Yep.
In the Americas. It was their last, they called it their jewel, and they didn't want to give that up. A lot of people from Spain had business constantly in Cuba, family. You had people coming. And in fact, that's how my grandfather, after the fact, traveled to Cuba. Right. But you had a lot of that. A lot of people traveling to Cuba and staying there after the fact. Well, there's and Spain also lost the Philippines. Which we've talked a little bit about in the past. But I just wanted to add this little bit. There's a movie. Unfortunately, it's in Spanish, but it's a good movie, and I'll give you like the synopsis. It's a snapshot into Spanish troops that were in the Philippines during that time, and they went through the jungles, and they went to a fort, and all their troops prior, because they were fighting the Filipinos that were trying to gain their independence and whatnot. I'm doing like a brief overview, and they found a lot of the Spaniards dead and this and that, and they holed up in the fort, and they had their food supplies and this and that. Well, they got surrounded, and they were being attacked, and they held their ground, and they held the fort, and the general or whatever, the guy, the captain or what, he was holding down and they were holding. And it's the story of these people inside that fort in the Philippines. But here's the twist: at some point, Spain said, "That's it, we give up, and you can, we've lost, so you guys can have all the things because we can't do anything." They never got that news, so they kept battling for I don't know how long against enemy forces until one guy brought them a newspaper, and the head guy, read it, and he says, "Lies. The enemy can forge this and this and that until we get the proper order. These are not proper orders." And he kept going, and they had to come, and they kept pleading until finally they left them because they needed the Spanish government could no longer go in because it was not theirs no more.
Right.
It was now taken over by the Americans. So they had held there until the very last, after losing everybody. They finally got some letter. Oh, they got a letter where a buddy of the captain guy was detailing so many things that he couldn't disagree with it, that it was real. And he found out that, well, guess what? The war is over.
Yeah.
And then the whole thing was how many people they spent, fighting a war after there was no war to fight. And it's a great movie because it shows how miscommunication back then, people be fighting even though it's done, like in the South.
Yeah. The Philippines are famous for that. There were Japanese soldiers hiding out in caves in the Philippines that until the 60s and early 70s that didn't know World War II was over.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, stealing food and just living off the land and what have you, and trying to stay out of sight. Could you imagine trying to assimilate back into a civilized society after that?
But it's got to be but also it's traumatizing. And these people, I mean, if anybody can get pushed over the edge and you stop believing in other people, in news, you could really, it depends on the person, if it depends on the person's psyche. But I know for me, I could definitely ripple in a situation like that where, there's danger. Well, I'm not having it. I'm going to defend myself. I'm not having it. There's danger. Okay. So I will start to little by little distrust to the point where there's no arguing with me, because my life is, I know that for a fact, I don't know it for a fact, but like I have that feel, that vibe. So I'm sure these people that were hiding out, they just lost their stuff. Yeah. And they're like, I'm going to survive. And these people are enemies. And that's it. So I could see that. I could totally see that.
Yeah.
I mean, would you, in a situation where your buddies have been.
Lord knows. I mean, Lord knows. I have no way of saying yes, I would, or no, I wouldn't. I really don't know. I mean, it's not something I've ever really pondered.
Yeah. That's the right answer, actually, because we don't know. You're right.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that if a human gets put in a constant threat for their life, you know what I'm saying? It's like, they lose it, man.
Yeah.
Anyways, well, I'm not going to say we pre-planned it, but because we did.
We never pre-plan anything. The only thing I ever plan when we do one of these podcasts is I plan to be dressed. And I make sure I have coffee.
I'm wearing my European, what is it? Bathing? What was it that we called?
You got the Speedo?
I'm wearing the Speedo from the waist down. No, I'm kidding. No way.
Well, that's where they're usually worn, so you're set. Well, thanks for hanging out with us, y'all. Thank you for putting up with the foolishness. We went everywhere, man. We started with food, went to the dumb way we used to dress in the 80s and old pictures, and God, we went all over the place.
We did a journey.
It was a sonic journey through your mind.
Well, I mean, I enjoyed it, and I needed a little bit of the talk, because all sorts of stuff is going on. But
oh yeah,
I do want to mention that we are sponsored by Harneal Media. That's Harneal Media. Steve over at harnealmedia.com, and they make websites, web stores. They could have you up and running. Steve can have you up and running and have a web store for you, whatever your needs are. Just contact him at harnealmedia.com. And we also do this show every Tuesday. Actually, we do this show every Tuesday at 9:30 Eastern and 6:30 Pacific Coast time. And you can catch us over here on YouTube, Trampled Underfoot Podcast on YouTube. You can catch us on Spreaker, Trampled Underfoot Podcast on Spreaker. And then you can catch us as well if you want to check out pictures and movies and videos and back and forth about things that we talk about here, curiosities, we usually post those over on our Facebook page, which is Facebook Trampled Underfoot Podcast on Facebook. There, so
Or
much.
words to that effect. Yeah. Just basically, if you go on Google and you type in Trampled Underfoot Podcast, you will find all of that. But the easy way to find it is head on over to trampledunderfootpodcast.com. You'll find links to all of our social media there, which basically is Facebook and YouTube. And that's us. And as Eloy says, we talk about something that needs a little bit of visual help. We'll post a picture or a video over on our Facebook page. Head over to Facebook, look for Trampled Underfoot Podcast on Facebook.
Well, we'll catch you guys next time. Peace.
Till then, have a good week. Thank you for hanging with us, y'all.